Blog Talk Radio.
Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot, oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girlz. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here are your supernatural hosts, Patricia Baker and Becky Andreasen. Supernatural Girlz.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting, and I do mean exciting, episode of Supernatural Girlz Radio. I am here with my co-host tonight, Becky Andreasen. Becky, welcome back to the show.
Yes, thank you very much. Hi, and hi, everyone out there. I'm happy to be here tonight.
Well, we are all thrilled to have you here, and especially tonight of all nights when we're talking about the sky people. This is great to have you back for this.
Yes, it is fascinating, these stories and experiences people have had. It's just, I was reading, I couldn't stop reading. I'm going on and on and on, and it's like, wow. And I even see similarities in some of our experiences with other people's experiences and the different beings they've experienced.
It's amazing. And for those in the audience who do not know, Becky herself is an abductee. And if you haven't read the book, The Andreasen Affair, I highly recommend it. It's been reprinted by New Page. It's available on Amazon.com. And Becky is in that book. Becky, your adventures are amazing.
Yes.
So, thank you so much for coming back on the show. I know you're feeling better, and you're like the miracle girl. So you're not just a supernatural girl; you're also the miracle girl in what you've been through, and how you've really just made another whole experience of health and life for yourself. God bless you. It's great.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Well, we also have with us tonight Miss Patricia Kirkman, of course, our very world-famous numerologist. Hi, Patricia. How are you tonight?
Hi, Patricia.
I am absolutely thrilled to be having the two of you together tonight. Becky, it's so great to hear you, sweetheart.
Thank you.
Perfect timing.
It is. So, Patricia, please tell us what we can expect from the numbers that are coming up for us this week. Now, we are through with that horrible Mercury retrograde thing, right? That's behind us?
No, we're not. They say we are. The retrograde period itself ended, but the shadow period does not end until the 3rd of March. Trust me, I can prove it. I have been bombarded with issues with my computer for the last 2 days. And I keep thinking, okay, God, please, shoot Mercury.
Yeah.
Do it.
Enough already.
It's horrible. Yeah, it is.
Well, when are we through with this thing?
All, pardon me?
When are we through with it?
At the 3rd of March. Sorry, that's
March.
it.
Oh,
the shadow period sometimes for some of us is worse than the actual retrograde. And I know it always catches me at the tail end in more ways than one. I feel like when they say hanging on a star, I'm hanging on a hook.
We're all hanging by our fingernails, right? Oh, my goodness.
Oh, that's for darn sure. That's for darn sure. But one of the nice things is that we're just about out of this particular month. And this month has been all about everybody wanting to do it their own way. And on top of that, having to kind of play pretty with everybody else. But we are going to be going into our 2 months, so we're going to start being more cooperative with everybody. But right between now and the 5th, although the month itself will be changing, we're in a bridge period that's all about communication and creativity. So if we just work on that element, we're going to have a pretty good weekend coming up.
Oh, boy.
That's good.
Nice to look forward to that.
Oh, definitely. We all can look forward to that one because, today was all about our finances and being in charge, putting things in order. But tomorrow it's what can we offer the world? What can we do for somebody else to make them feel better? And by doing that, we will also enhance what we need for ourselves.
Very nice.
That's great.
Yeah. Very, very nice. Well, that's terrific.
We've got a great gift with Becky being able to be available tonight and working on this. It's a feel-good for the rest of us.
It really is. I mean,
it shows what great things can happen.
This is great. And then what I also wanted to share with everybody is thanks to you, Patricia, we were able to entice your friend, George Lugo, who's going to be with us next week, actually, on the show, very famous medium, to join us with our skull experiment project, which we have resumed. And we came out with some really wild photographs. Now, Patricia, Becky, you've seen them. I mean, these things are wild. And I'm going to have to share them with our audience.
Lots of company with us.
Yeah, we had the commander showed up. I mean,
I love that. That was spectacular when I seen it.
Just amazing. So seeing the commander like that so boldly in the photographs that we all took, it's just amazing what is possible when you go to connect with beings from other dimensions and on the other side. So we are rocking and rolling again, and I will be starting to blog about all of these things that we're doing together, and I'll be posting pictures. But you know what? If you really want to know what's going on, make sure you're signed up on the newsletter. So go to Supernatural Girlz, with a Z.com, and make sure that you are signed up so that when all of these exciting things take place, you'll be the first to know about it. And also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. We'll be posting everything there as well. These are going to be some really exciting times with being able to pull this type of clarity through in photographs from the other side. So don't miss it, everybody. This is just great stuff. And just be a part of it.
How lucky we are to be able to be a participant.
Yes, that's true. And to have such great company. I mean, show up for us. I love it when they show up for us and we can get the pictures so everyone can see. See, they're there. They're there. They came right through.
They really did. And also in Becky's screen, because we do all this on Skype because we're in all different parts of the country, Becky's screen went totally into another dimension.
Yes. And I even seen the light door on the side. I was shocked to see that on the right-hand side of the picture, the lit door.
Oh, yeah.
And then the colors. Oh, my gosh.
It's amazing.
I told you I was getting zapped.
You were. I mean, you had your lamp on. You had your blinds up and blinding sun coming in, and the room just went into another dimension, totally dark. We couldn't even see Becky. It was just an amazing experience, everybody. You have got to stay tuned for this. This is the real deal. This is really paranormal stuff in action. So you want to be a part of it. And tonight's guest is not just a great guest. She's an extraordinary woman. I mean, what an adventurer. I mean, when I was reading how she trekked through MesoAmerica, talking to people who wanted to share their stories. That's quite a journey. It's like Indiana Jones stuff, you know?
Yeah, it was exciting.
And I couldn't have done it. I mean, only someone like Dr. Clarke could have pulled this one off, I'm sure, because she was just able to gather people's confidence, and they were able to talk to her and tell all of these wonderful stories. And I'll tell you what, I haven't heard a lot of these before. I mean, these were just brand new to me.
Yes. And so different little things in there that I was catching, I was pretty amazed to see all down in that area, which I'll ask her about when we get to talk with her soon.
We will bring her on the line in just a minute. And again, Patricia, thank you so much for your words of wisdom.
Yes, Patricia. Bless your heart.
Yes, retrograde. And also
here with two lovely ladies, such as yourself, and can't wait for the show to start. I've got my popcorn ready. I've got my feet up, and I'm not going to miss a thing.
Thank you so much, Patricia.
Have a great show, ladies. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Ann.
So I am going to introduce our guest, and I see there's a little bit of audio issue here with Dr. Clarke. We'll do the best we can. During a break, we may have Rebecca, our call screener, call Dr. Clarke again, see if we can clear it up. But we'll give it a try and see what happens. But I want to introduce our guest. And, again, she is extraordinary. This is Dr. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke. She is a Professor Emeritus at Montana State University, and she has dedicated her life and career to working with indigenous populations. So she's an amazing lady. She's a licensed therapist also. She was a high school teacher, English teacher, a counselor, a school administrator, a university professor, and administrator. Most importantly, she lives in Montana with her husband, Kip, and, well, here's the important part, her beloved Lhasa Apso, Prairie Rose, and her Maine Coon cat, Rez Perez. Her second book in the field of ufology, Sky People, Untold Stories of Alien Encounters in MesoAmerica, is what we're going to be talking about tonight. So, Ardy, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, great. Well, we're so thrilled to have you here. Your book is extraordinary. Everybody should run out and buy it. I mean it.
Thank you.
Mean, it's rich. It's a rich book. You know, there's a lot of books we see that come across our desks here for Becky and I and Patricia Kirkman, and they're kind of thin. But yours is just chock full of adventure and all these stories that people told you. Oh, my goodness. What possessed you to take this journey? What a journey.
Well, I've had a lifelong interest in the star people. Began very early hearing star stories when I was a child. And when I was in high school, a teacher handed me a book entitled Incidents of Travel in Central America, the Chiapas and the Yucatan, and she thought I might be interested in it. Well, it was a book by two 19th century explorers. Frederick Catherwood was the architect, so he drew the pictures of the ancient cities, and John L. Stevens was an explorer, and he convinced Catherwood to go with him, and he put the book together. And it was a story of their adventures going through, they started out in Belize City, and they went to Copan in Honduras, and then moved into Guatemala, and then into Mexico. And Stephen, when they got into Mexico, they stopped at Palenque in the Chiapas, and Catherwood became very ill, and so ill that he could not carry on.
Oh, and no. Did he have malaria, I think you said in your book?
Yes, he had malaria.
Oh, terrible.
And so they actually returned to the United States. And then in 1841, they made a second trip. And in this trip, they only went to Mexico, to the sites in Mexico. And they wrote Incidents of Travel in the Yucatan. And I read both of those books, and I told my teacher, I said, one of these days I'm going to follow in their footsteps.
Oh, my goodness.
And I made that vow to myself, and when I retired at MSU, I decided to do just that. And so I started out in Belize City, which had, at the time Stevens and Catherwood were in British Honduras, there was a war going on between the British and the Spanish over who was to control the country. Well, eventually, the Spanish controlled most of the country, and it became Honduras. And the British controlled another part, which became Belize. So they had landed in Belize City and just rested there. So I went there and did some traveling around the country of Belize to various sites before going into Copan, Honduras, which was the first ancient city that they visited.
Now, you were saying in your book, Ardy, that when you went to Belize, the people there were very welcoming to you, very friendly and open.
Oh, yes. Well, it's an English-speaking country. I had one of the most gregarious guides anybody could possibly have, who seemed to know everybody in the country. And he would just walk into a room, and the next thing you know, I know half the people in the room and know their life's history, and they know mine. And he was just that kind of character, and he was just invaluable to me. And of course, it being an English-speaking nation, that removed the barrier, the language barrier, and because one of the things that I had required of all the drivers that I engaged was that they speak both Spanish and English fluently, and also the Mayan dialect of the region, because there's so many different dialects that was almost a necessity, because many of the people I interviewed did not speak Spanish or English, but spoke a Mayan dialect.
Oh my goodness! Well, again, this is an adventure you took on basically solo. I mean, you went by yourself, and you had these drivers and translators with you. But this is a pretty bold move.
Well, it was a journey of love. I had been to Mexico on numerous occasions, and even when I was writing a book, would even take a vacation there with friends and with my husband, just because I love the country so much. I mean, I've spent Christmas and New Year's holidays there with friends and my husband, and really, not doing research, just enjoying, the being in that kind of atmosphere. But I have a strong. I'm really fond of Mexico and the people of Mexico.
That's so nice. So it's a really heartfelt adventure that you were on, but not without danger. I really commend you, don't you, Becky? Also, is like, whoa.
Yes, I do. And they claim, the shamans spoke of her coming and claiming that she is one of them, and you found out you are one of them, right?
Well, apparently so. Perhaps
right.
In another life, or they seem to think I carried with me the ancestry of their people. They just embraced me as one of them and said I was one of them, and so I accept that. But their priest in the mountains, their traditional priest, had predicted my arrival, and there was no way I could convince them otherwise, even though it was a kind of a heavy burden they had placed upon me, because the first time I went to Copan was right after the 9/11 incident, and there weren't many people traveling in those days, and so Copan, it depends the village people who have shops and tourist businesses and things of that nature were really suffering economically because nobody was coming there. And so this priest had a vision that a woman from the north would come, and she would bring peace and prosperity to the people as long as she was one of them, and she would go into the site at night, and if the elders came, then it would confirm that I was the one they were waiting for. So it was, and if I was the one, then they would be prosperous again. And you can imagine my intrepidation at being singled out, and for fear that prosperity would not return to the village. But fortunately, it did. People started coming in droves to the city.
Yeah, absolutely. The shamans know what they're talking about.
Yes.
Well, and this isn't the first time I've gone into someplace not in Mexico, or Honduras, not in Mesoamerica, but it's not the first time I've had to go into a village and have a shaman tell me he had been expecting me, and then he proceeded to tell me about what was going on in my life, which was really quite amazing.
Yes, it is amazing.
Goodness.
It's wonderful, isn't it?
Yes. You just can't imagine sometimes the power and the knowledge and the vision that many of these local shaman, the abilities they possess.
Mm-hmm. Quite powerful. And as you mentioned in the book, and again, the name of the book is Sky People, Untold Stories of Alien Encounters in MesoAmerica. Terrific book. You also talk about the fact that the people you spoke with, they weren't like us in terms of really, we are overrun by the media. I mean, the media is endless.
Right.
And they weren't like that. They're not sitting in front of their television every night like us, and is sitting in front of their computers every night like us or every day. So they were kind of pure. And the stories that you got.
Right, and that was what made their stories so important as far as I was concerned. You know, one of the things that I tried to do in this book is to not only tell their stories, but I collected close to 100 stories during that period. I took this journey. I've collected many more since then, but this was from 2003 to 2010. What I wanted to show, and this is what I tried to do in the selection of the stories that I've shared with in this book, was I wanted to show the variety of spacecraft that they saw, the variety of alien beings that they encountered, and the variety of experiences they had. Because here is a nation of people who do not have access to television the way we do, and if they do have TV, most of the time it's a black and white TV, and if they do have it, they only get a couple channels. They don't get the History Channel and the Alien Hunters and the Ancient Aliens and all of these shows that are on television all the time. They don't see that kind of thing. They don't have access to the magazines and the newspapers and the movies that we have. So they are not jaded, or they are not have preconceived ideas. And that's what I wanted to capture. Because, on Native American reservations, a lot of that still exists as well, that people live without television. I was recently talking to my niece, and she says, well, the good news is that the cable is talking about coming through here, and if they do, I'll be able to have internet for the first time. Now, you think about, the world has had internet for 20 years, and yet she doesn't have access to the internet on the reservation, nor television, because unless she wants to do satellite, I suppose, is now available, but she doesn't see that as an option for some reason. But think about that. People. There are a lot of people on Native American reservations that don't have access to that kind of information as well. So, I tried to show that in my books, that we're not dealing with a population that is inundated with this material, and yet their experiences almost mirror the experiences of those who do have access to it. That in itself, to me, validates what people have been saying, for the last 50 years.
Well, yeah, you make an excellent point with that. And also, a lot of the people you talk to, there's a number of them that were 100 years old or 100 plus years old. So,
one of my favorite characters in the book was going to be 100 years old in 2 days, he told me.
Right.
Oh, that's right. And I know you talked about even going back to visit some of these older people, but they had thank God you were able to get them when you did.
I know, and there's still, I'm sure there's still many more stories there. One of the things that I tried to do is people say, well, how did you get these stories? Well, the way I got them is that, first of all, I humbled myself before the community. I would go in and one of the things that was important to me is the acceptance of the women of the villages. So if they were washing dishes, I dried. If they had to go carry water, I carried water. If they were cooking and I could help, I would do that. Because I wanted them to see. I grew up that way. I grew up without running water. I grew up without a bathroom. I know how to live that way, and I can still live that way. And it doesn't bother me to do that. And so I think that just seeing me fit into that community that way was extremely helpful, because I did become one of them. And except, I could plant corn. I can hoe corn. I mean, I did it when I was a kid, so why not do it now if that's going to make people realize that I am who I say I am, and I am somebody who will hear their stories and treat them respectfully. And
you
so,
did. I mean, that's absolutely what you did.
Well, and when I've asked people before why they never told the stories before, they would say nobody asked.
Yeah.
When I asked them about the ancient astronaut theory, and they just, the scholars and the well-educated Maya would say, well, he never asked us.
Wow.
He wasn't concerned about what we believed. He was only concerned what, from his perspective and from his position, his own interpretation, putting his own culture into what it meant, not looking at our culture and asking us what it meant. And I think that's an important thing. In research, in research, in qualitative research, we say that there's two types of researchers. There's the etic, and that's the person who goes into a community, observes, and writes his own conclusions. And that person draws on his own experiences and his own background to interpret what he observes. And then there's the emic researcher who goes in and becomes a part of the community and doesn't make judgments, allows the people to describe and explain what is going on, and that's what they record. They never question the authenticity. They never put their own judgments or analysis on the situation. They simply allow the people themselves to relate what is going on. And that's what I try to do.
Well, it's what you did. I mean, it's such an authenticity about you as a person and your book. I mean, it's just the truth. And also, I really commend you for the way you asked them about their story. There were no leading questions on your part. You were very careful not to offer up your own opinion. It was, well, what do you think, to the people you were speaking with. It's great. I mean, you basically kind of seduced us to come with you on this journey into this Mesoamerican world of UFOs, and I learned so much from this book. How about you, Becky? I mean, I know you're much more aware of all of these things, but...
Yes, it was fascinating. First off, I've seen quite a bit about a lot of the sky people or the beings being like 3.5 feet tall or 4 feet tall, and the different kinds, and then also them telling that there are many different types, which we've been told before also, that circle the earth and watch us and come down and back and forth, and they take so many years, like the one group that Shining, I think it was the Shining ones, that take 16 years to come and go, and they'll be here next year, 2016.
That was one of the stories in the book?
In the book, yes. Shining ones, yeah, and they'll be coming back. And they've also, when they were here, you had said that they had taught man cures to everything, but they still won't use them. And that is an awful shame.
I know that's what the one elder told me, that the Shining people had told him that they had given up many cures for diseases, and that the doctors and pharmacies just don't use them.
No, they have them. they just will not use them. And like I said again, that shows, the moral of our people, a lot of our people, which is
the
really
greed,
sad to hear. Yes, it's so
the greed
awful and
to make
sad
money.
to hear. And what will the Shining Ones do when they come back and see nothing has been done when they gave that freely information to them?
Well, apparently, according to the elders, they come back and every 16 years and try to, bring about changes and increase the knowledge of those people in power and those people who have decision making. But he really didn't address how they reacted if they didn't implement any of. Perhaps they're even accustomed to humans doing that.
Boy, that needs to be changed.
Yeah.
And, the interesting thing of it is that he was saying that, you could have somebody who is of the Shining People next to you, and you wouldn't even know it because they can assume any identity they want to assume. He said if they go to another world, they assume the identity of the dominant being on that planet, and his explanation of the different things that were going on was just amazing.
I think they've been here with me because I've gotten the shining orbs with the crosses in them, and then the shining orb, and when you enlarged the orb, it was a white-robed being with golden hair and blue wings, and I've actually got pictures of this. Right.
Well, he said that when you see, he said one of the elders was telling me, he said that people see these balls of light or these orbs a lot, but they don't recognize what they are. They only see them as just flashes of light, but they're actually alien visitations, and that they can transform into any form of life and observe what's going on Earth.
Yeah, I've caught them in pictures, and I see them in it. I see faces in them. There's faces within them, and then there's a whole being within it. It looks like an angel with blue wings, and I got a shiny, in broad daylight, a light that looks like a lightning. It's so bright that is in almost the shape of a cross, or it could be like a human with his arms out. I've received that because I see those sparks of light and those balls of light, and I take pictures of them because I know there's something within it.
And clearly there is. Yeah, and
this
is, and it's nice to get this kind of confirmation with you, Ardy, about a lot of the things that Becky attracts and then sees and takes photographs of. I mean, it's so important, I think, to keep weaving the fabric together because, one of the things, let's go back to one of your stories, which I absolutely loved, about the boys that, I think it was one boy that you talked to. Now, obviously, he was grown up, and he talked about going into a cave and finding a spaceman in a spacesuit, and that he ended up bringing this. It was just a skeleton, but it was covered by this spacesuit, and he brought it. I'll let you tell the story, and then what happened from there. This is a great story.
Yeah.
Yes, it was told to me. The story was told to me by an elder, Luis Santiago, and he was 99 years old. And he said, I was a typical boy growing up in the mountains, and I worked hard and I played hard. And he said that, like all kids, he dreamed of leaving the mountains and going on adventures. And he said that he was 5 years old when this American by the name of Herbert Spenden came to Copan. Spenden was the assistant curator of anthropology at the American Museum of Natural History in New York City. And he said he came to Copan, and he said, I went to see him, and he said, begging him for a job. And he said, finally, he gave me a job, 10 cents a day. And I had to work at the site every day, and I carried water to the different people who were working there, and I carried lunches, and I just ran errands. I was a runner, he said. And he said one day Spenden told me if I would learn English, he would give me a raise. And he said, so I learned English. By the time I was 8, I could speak very good English. And he said that he gave me 25 cents. And he said soon after that, Spindon left. And he said he was a group of archaeologists and workers came in from Carnegie. And when they found me that I could speak such good English, they hired me at 50 cents a day.
Oh, wow.
And he said, I went out and I would, on the weekends, my cousins and my friends and I would go exploring and looking for ancient artifacts because the archaeologists told us if we found anything that they would pay us. And on this particular weekend, he and his cousins went up into the mountains and they came upon a cave. And they went into the cave, and inside the cave was the skeleton inside a silver suit. And he said that it was the skeleton was inside this suit, and it was silver from the top of its head to the bottom of its feet, he said. And I asked him to describe the suit, and he told me that it was, he said, imagine a coffee can turned upside down, that's silver, and then a hose came out of that, went into a pack on his chest, and there were colored buttons on there. And he said, I had heard about stories about the little men in the silver suits that came from the sky. He said the elders would tell about these little men that came on a disc from the sky, that the disc spit fire. And these little people would stay up in the mountains, and sometimes for months on end, and other times they'd just stay a few days and they were gone. But we knew they were there, and we didn't bother them, and they didn't bother us. And he said, so this, I think, he said, this suit we uncovered was the remains of one of those little men. He must have died, and they put him in the cave. And he said beside him was a metal tablet that had writing on it that wasn't Mayan. And he said it wasn't English because I've seen English writing. And he said, so it must have been their language. But he said, anyway, my cousin and I, we carried him back to the archaeologists. And when they saw him, they got so excited. And he said that he heard one of them say, we're going to have to ship this back to the university immediately. And he said that I said, well, did you see it again? And he said, no. He said, I saw a box that I think they put him in and shipped him back. And he said, you know, the hardest thing, he said, I've never forgiven myself for doing it, for selling them the remains of this little man. He said, because I have, first of all, it was a part of our history and proof that our legends about the star people were true. But secondly, I always felt like I had given away a part of my culture and our connection with those little people. And he said that somebody knows about his existence at one of those universities up in the States, but nobody ever talks about it or reveals the truth. And he said, I'll go to my grave regretting what I did. He said, I never again went into the mountains and searched for artifacts for the archaeologists. I was just too ashamed of what I had done because I gave away part of who we are. So it was a very sad story in many ways, but also a very revealing story because who else would have known? You know, you hear stories in ancient legends about these little people. You know, there's one down in Arizona in the Superstition Mountains that the Apache actually tell, and they tell about this group of little people that live there in the Superstition Mountain area, and they farmed the land, and they had this beautiful white woman who lived with them. And the Zuni claimed her and said she belonged to them. And so they got their warriors together, and they were going to come and capture her because they said they found her and she belonged to them. And so the Apache story says that they got up on a mountainside to watch what was going to happen when these Zuni arrived to take this white woman. And when they arrived, she had told all of the little people to put rocks and everything in the canyon so it would be difficult for them to get there. And then she hid the little people all throughout the mountains there. And then when they came, she threw balls of fire and explosions and killed almost all the Zuni warriors. And the Apache were watching this and just were amazed at her powers. And they said after that, you could see her and the little people for some time, but then they went away. And some people say that she took the little people and went back to the stars where she came from. And other people say that they live inside the mountain and they're happy there. So those are the kind of stories, you think about all the stories that have been told about visitors from the stars. Here's a grandfather telling me about, they come on discs that spit fire.
Right. That's right there, the description alone. I mean,
I know. You just think about that.
Yeah.
Well, and the Hopis talked about discs that spit fire. Here are the Apache and the Zuni claiming a extremely fair white woman, that had these unusual powers and protected these little people. And the story is that she either took them to the stars or they live inside Superstition Mountain.
I wonder if her name
there's
is
so
Ishta.
much connection, isn't there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, the connections that, again, I think your book, Ardy, is remarkable, and it does help, again, as I'm saying, to weave this fabric, because just this experience that you talk about with the elder recounting this profound sense of regret that he had for disturbing the gravesite of the spaceman. And then on top of that, what we hear about, and of course, Becky, you and I have talked about this forever, again, the universities or the government or whomever, they take these artifacts away and we never hear about them again. So anything that supports what we know to be true, that these star people and sky people have been with us forever, it's buried. And it's a terrible feeling. And to know what we all know, I mean, our audience knows and three of us know, and yet it remains to be a question in a lot of people's minds.
Well, when you think about, there's a story in the book about these two brothers that have this cornfield on the outskirts of their village.
Oh, yeah.
And they get up very early in the morning and they go out and they work when the weather is cooler. And then midday they go home and they eat and they take their nap and don't go back to the fields until early evening because it's just so hot in that part of the world. And while they are packing up to go home to have their late lunch and to take their nap, they see this craft come down, and it's hovering over a tree that is nearby their cornfield. And then they see this little man come down, and he descends from this craft, and he walks to there, and he walks very funny. They said he walked very stiffly. He goes to their cornfield, and he starts collecting corn. And he's got this little bag, and he's putting his corn in it. And they are just dumbfounded. The brother said to me, he said, if he had asked, we would have given him corn, but he didn't ask. And so they got really upset. This little man is stealing their corn, and one brother challenged him. And, of course, he quickly goes back and disappears inside the spacecraft. But they get so deathly sick. And obviously, I mean, it probably was radiation poisoning, because the next day they couldn't even get out of bed, and they were covered with rashes, and of course, you know, and they this has been going on for 2 years with them, and they have good days and bad days. And he said, well, they're just poison. Those people from the stars are just poison. Those strange little men. If you ever come upon them, he said, you stay away from them because they're poison. Wow. And you know, the way he was talking, you know, he actually stood underneath this spacecraft without any protection. You know,
that's what I think.
Yeah, the alien had protection, but he didn't, because he was wearing a suit, but he didn't have any protection. And I think that's what happened to him. And, you know, I even offered, you know, he asked me if I knew any medicines, and I said, well, I don't, but, you know, why don't you go to a doctor? And then the thought occurred to me, maybe he was too poor. And so I offered to pay, you know. I said, you know, I'll take you. And no, he didn't trust doctors. He wasn't going to go to any doctors. So, you know, it was all I could do was to offer. But it was an interesting story, because I have come across stories where people became ill when they were exposed to the spaceship, you know.
Yes, that's a common theme. It seems to run through a lot of this stuff. And I'll tell you what, Ardy, I mean, we could listen to you all night long. This is fantastic. I'm just loving this.
Well, thank you.
Yes, I love it. It's wonderful.
Great. But we're going to take a short commercial break. And if you have a question for Ardy, we're not going to be putting you on the air tonight, but you can call in at 646-478-0828. You can speak with our call screener, Rebecca, and tell her what your question is, and we'll ask it for you on the air. We have a couple questions for Ardy in the chat room. And so we're going to come right back and hear more stories about the sky people. So everybody, stay tuned. We will be right back.
This is Veronique Raskin, founder of the Organic Wine Company. As one of the pioneers of the organic wine movement, since 1980 I have brought you the very best and most authentic organic wines directly to your table. I work with small family estates who grow certified organic grapes and produce exceptional wines. You can purchase our wines individually from our website at theorganicwinecompany.com or join one of our wine clubs. Our organic wines are perfect for you and for your family as gifts for friends and relatives, and they are simply spectacular for the holidays. Visit us at theorganicwinecompany.com to enjoy the very best organic wines conveniently delivered to your door. I am Veronique Raskin, passionate about my mission. I offer to you vegan, organic, and biodynamic wines, wines made by people of the heart, wines with a heart. Au revoir. Call us at 1-888-ECO-WINE.
Your property tax bill. Have you seen it lately? It's frightening. Your property taxes are going up while your home value is going down. It's time to fight back and win. For the real truth about the property tax system, get attorney Pat Quintilian's book, Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. Attorney Quintilian answers all your questions and gives you the facts you need to fight a property tax bill that is spiraling out of control. You'll also read about what happens to property owners who don't check their property records, only to find out too late they're taxed on square footage, fixtures, and even buildings that they don't own. Is this happening to you? Learn your rights. Buy Attorney Pat Quintilian's book today. Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. Available on Amazon.com. Are you ready for a new experience of freedom and powerful connection? Would you like a positive, effortless change in your life? Then come to CosmicFusion.com, where we offer the most advanced energy clearing and expansion techniques in the world, with a quantum vortex energy to activate your divine blueprint and life's purpose. When your soul leads the way with cosmic fusion and quantum vortex energy, you can break clear of past difficulties and blocks with the power of the Source. With Cosmic Fusion, the Source energy does the work for you. It's easy and effortless. Listen to our free meditation right from our Cosmic Fusion website, the Cosmic Code Meditation. Sign up for one of our interactive webinars today. Come to Cosmic Fusion, www.KOSMICfusion.com, to experience an effortless awakening and transformation. Are you ready for an upgrade? Are you ready for a new experience of living in the fifth dimensional magic and powerful connection? Then visit CosmicFusion.com today. CosmicFusion.com.
Speaking with Dr. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke, who is the author of an extraordinary book, Sky People, Untold Stories of Alien Encounters in MesoAmerica. And Ardy, we've got a question for you from the chat room. Someone would like you to talk more about the men that walked through mountains.
Oh, okay. That story took place in Belize, and I was staying in this small boutique hotel there in Belize City, and one night I came home from my travels, and I came back home to the hotel, and I was stopped by the manager, and he said, "I hear you like stories." And I said, "Well, yes." And he said, "UFO stories?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, I have one to tell. If you ever have time and you want to hear a true story, I will tell you mine." So the next night I stopped by the desk, and he was sitting behind it watching a little TV set. And I said to him, "I'm here to hear your story." And so he began telling me that when he was a young man, he was 17, 18 years old, he and his cousins and some friends, they would go into this ancient site near his village. And he said it was a site that was not well known because it hadn't been excavated and tourists didn't go there. But he said he would go there, they would go there and they would drink, because he said that whenever they would drink in the village, his grandma and his mother would catch him and they would beat him up. And so he said that they would sneak off to this ancient village and they would drink and party together. And on this one particular weekend, they decided to go camp out and drink. He said as they approached the site, there was a strange odor that kind of took them back. And when they peeked into the plaza of the site, they saw this strange vehicle that was parked there. It was a cigar-shaped vehicle, but they had never seen anything like that. And the first thing they decided is that it was an American craft. And they saw these beings standing there. They were humanoid, and they decided they were American soldiers. And it was an American military operation. But they stood there and kind of hid to see what was going on. And one of the first things they noticed is that when they stood in front of the craft, their clothes were the color of the craft. But if they moved out where they were in the area where the jungle was behind them, they assumed the color of the jungle. And so they decided that must be a secret weapon where you could hide from your enemies that the Americans had. And so they were talking about this, he said, and all of a sudden they started walking across the plaza, and they walked to this mountain where it was obvious that it was a temple, a stone temple was underneath all the vegetation. And he said they walked right through it. And it upset his cousin particularly, because they knew there was a tunnel underneath that temple because they had discovered it and had gone in there, and there were many artifacts in there, and the boys kind of had taken it up on themselves to protect it and kept that place hidden. So they were afraid that these people were going, whatever they were going to steal the artifacts, and so they started running toward the opening of the tunnel, and they were going to check out what they were doing. But before they had a chance, they reappeared and just walked right out of this mountain, and they were extremely confused. And about at that time, the aliens saw them, and without saying a word, they simply got into the craft and flew away. And they decided that it was not a good idea for them to go back there anymore and party. And he said not only that, they gave up alcohol, so perhaps it was a good thing.
Yeah, they all got sober real quick.
Well, I asked him, I said, were you drunk when this happened? And he said, oh, no. He said, we hadn't even arrived at this site yet. He said, and, when we saw it, he said, we hid and just watched what was going on.
Well, and again,
but it was an interesting story.
It's a great story, and also so, again, credible, because they're talking about, how their thought process when they went through all these different thoughts about what this could be. Must be American, must be U.S. soldiers, must be secret weapons. And it makes a lot of sense. Everything that they said, it would make logical sense. That's what a child or a teenager would think. When
and he told me, we're always hearing things about Americans doing things in the jungle, the American military.
Right.
And he said whether they do it or not, I don't know. He said, they could hear anything and say it was Americans. But he said, we had heard those stories, so we decided it was the American military.
It makes sense. Well, again, it makes perfect sense.
And also walking through mountains or walking through a solid substance. I mean, we even experienced that with the Greys that walked right through the door, through our house in the door, walked right through, didn't open the door, walked through the door. I mean, so this shows that it happens with a lot of these beings. And also where they, their suits that they have on or whatever they have on, they end up blending in to the background wherever they are.
Well, that's what he was saying.
Right. I've personally seen that where I've explained to people that it looks like on a hot summer day, the heat rising from the road looking far off. You can almost see that form of heat and a being moving around in your room or moving around, outside or wherever you are. And I've personally seen that. And they had to have been blending into the background for me to actually see the essence of that moving around, but not yet seeing them. And then within, maybe 10 or 20 minutes, I've seen the being, and then it's been gone. Or I've seen the ball of light, and it's zipped off and gone. So I realized I knew something was there. I could feel it.
You, Becky, also are very astute when it comes to picking up that kind of energy, and I think most people would not be able to see it or see them. They would really be able to totally camouflage themselves. They can't get away with it with you.
Yeah.
But
that's
I
probably
think
for my childhood.
For me and other people, we wouldn't be able to pick them out and see them. So they can literally make themselves invisible by blending into the background.
Right. And also the other amazing thing, well, there was a couple of different things. I was really astonished by a lot of these beings down in that area having red eyes, because the things that I have seen with red eyes, and they were actually creatures, were quite scary and dangerous. But I was really amazed.
That one, those girls who told me, those teenage girls, about walking back from the plaza and encountering these creatures who apparently were trying to kidnap them.
Yeah.
And they thought, one of the things that was interesting about their description of them is that they said that they thought they were boys from their community. And that they would use the voices of the boys from the community, and sometimes they looked like them. But then when they came out into the light, they saw their red eyes, and that just terrified them, And when the one got loose, they all ran away, But these little men were literally on the ground, but they swore they had red eyes.
That was something.
Yeah, that's scary. And then also you talk about there were some really wonderful encounters, like with the elder who told you about being taken to another planet and planting, and it just sounded lovely. But then there are these other stories about, again, young girls and women being kidnapped and never to be seen again. That's scary.
Right.
And being impregnated.
Yes.
And the one young couple, I'll never forget them. They touched me so much, touched my heart, because here was a young woman who found herself pregnant. She had never been with a man, and she was engaged to be married. And she went to her fiance and she said, I'm faithful to you. I've never been with a man. And of course, both of them were devout Catholics, and he said, well, it must be a virgin birth like Mother Mary, and we'll get married. Right now, we'll just get married early, and that way nobody can talk about you. And when they were taken the second time on the craft, they realized that they had been taken on this craft, and they believed that the aliens stole her baby. And so, but you think of that in terms of comparing her pregnancy to the virgin birth, and thinking that it was like, if a miracle can happen as the Bible tells us, then why not this miracle happen?
Sure.
Just as in the case of the birth of Jesus.
Yeah. Well, and your Pentecostal. You were talking about Pentecostal religion in here, also the Protestant Pentecostal religion, sounding close like their language in speaking. And I am receiving right now a message from the elder for you, and it's going to open another door. Can I give this message to you in their language? They want you to know it. Okay, it's coming now. Yondorea tarea so chukumorania tora hahihin dora hatokosa. Inki gemania ya torodusi. Lereon totamahai I kushushodaria tipi. Yeshiniana Alaria suku Yeshua Yudochushanian the andere de Adarakosa ha. Hu Korea ye tisa. That's for you, and your soul knows what it is. It feels like it's another door that's going to open, an experience for you coming.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. That felt wonderful to give that out. It was sitting there and waiting, and I wanted to let you know. And I myself, from my childhood up, I'm Protestant, and I was Pentecost and Baptist. Those are the two churches that we attended and went to. And I never realized that their language was that close to that either until you mentioned this. And then I sat and really thought about it and was hearing it within myself, and it's close to that. And that would be the language of fire.
Yeah. Well, many of the Pentecostal preachers were telling the people that their sightings of aliens and spacecraft was from the devil.
Yeah, I know. Which is wild and crazy to me.
And so this really confused them, that because they had a history of contact with the sky gods, and here are these Pentecostal preachers tell them that no, they're demons. They're they're messengers from the devil.
Yeah, I know. It's an awful thing when people don't understand the truth, the rooted truth of things.
Well, one of
it's sad.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most interesting things one of the most interesting stories I got was that I heard was from Evelyn down in Merida. She was a young woman whose mother was American, and she had married a young mestizo, which is half Mayan and half Spanish blood. And she married him, and they lived on this huge hacienda. And when Evelyn was 9 years old, her mother died of cancer. She had been back to the United States for a couple of times for treatment, but it hadn't been successful. And so she had died of cancer, and Evelyn was telling me the story about losing her brother. And it was a rather interesting story because, she said that her brother Aiden was, they were asleep in the backyard, and she had a sister named Gabriella, and she said that she said she woke up in the middle of the night, and she woke up Gabriella, and they saw 3 balls of light in the backyard. And on the way out of the house, they woke up Aiden, and he followed them out. And she said, we stood on the porch, and we watched these balls of light. And she said, suddenly these tall beings came into view. She said they were not quite human, but they looked like humans. And she said, Aiden said he was going to go and shake hands with them. And she said, I called to him, and I told him not to go over there, but he didn't listen. And suddenly they saw a big flash of light, and that's the last thing they saw of their brother. She said, we fell asleep on the porch, and she said the next morning when my father woke up, he demanded to know where Aiden was, and we told him what had happened, and he didn't believe us. And he gathered all the workers on the ranch, and he went in, gathered everybody up, and they went searching for Aiden. But Aiden was never found. And she said the spacemen took him. And she said there was a light, a blue light. She said it lit up the whole yard, and it came from above the trees, and we saw the silhouette of a flying machine. And she said, I blame myself a lot for this. She said, had I let him sleep, he would not have been out on the veranda that night. He wouldn't have been so impetuous and gone looking for him. But she said that he's never returned. And of course, she went to college in the U.S., as did Gabriella. In fact, Gabriella still lives in the U.S., but she lives down in outside of Merida with her dad, because she said, her dad is. This has had a huge impact on him. First, he loses his wife, and then his son, and his son was supposed to take over, the ranch. And she said that every once in a while, she said, I see a spacecraft in the sky, and I sometimes wonder if Aiden is there with them, checking on Dad.
Looking in on them.
Yeah.
Looking
she said,
in. That was his
Is.
destiny.
Yeah. She said, but maybe his job in the other world is so important he has no time to stop and tell us he's all right.
Yeah.
She said it sure would help if he'd do that.
Well, I think she already feels it or knows it, because she sees it, the ship there, and knows it's coming around and over. So I think deep down inside she knows it, but she would really love to see her brother physically.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I after I heard her story, and I was doing some research one night and thinking about Evelyn, because she actually is married now, and she has a little girl, and she and her husband have taken over the management of the ranch and they have an orange orchard. And we keep in contact, and she's actually been to Montana to visit me and spend a week with me once. And I did some research on missing persons. And it was interesting what I discovered, because they say what I've discovered is that 20,000 people are children, 20,000 children worldwide are reported missing every year.
God, that's a huge amount.
Well, and it's estimated that 2 million people go missing every year around the globe. Now, 50% of these, they said, can be said to be individuals who are victims of crime or purposeful disappearances, such as runaways. But the other 50%, or 1 million, just baffle authorities. There's no explanation of where they've gone or why they've gone. And some people believe that alien abduction may be one of the explanations for these disappearances.
Yeah, I believe so.
I recently interviewed a man who told me that he was repeatedly abducted by the aliens, and one day they said to him, "Would you like to go with us?" And he said, "What do you mean, would I like to go with you?" They said, "Well, would you like to go with us permanently?" And he said, "No." And they said, "Well, there are people that we ask, and there are a lot of people who want to go with us." And they said they either have nobody else, or they're lonely, or they have no friends or no relatives, and some who are adventurous and just want to live in another world.
Yeah.
And he said, and they told him that often when they find somebody that they think would do well in their world, they ask them if they want to go, and if they do, they take them away. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah,
that is, and they do that.
You'd think about that 1 million people go missing every year. 20,000 of those are children, and yet, there's no explanation of where, of what happened to them.
Yeah, that's a lot of people to go missing,
and perhaps
without
a
trace.
Percentage of them are being abducted or choose to go live someplace else.
Well, and that brings me back to the story that you heard from the elder about being taken up in the ship and brought to another world and doing this planting thing. Can you talk about that?
Yes, he was just an amazing man. He was an elder who said that when he was a little boy, that he was actually kidnapped or taken on board a starship, and he really didn't know, what it was all about. But he stayed overnight on this spacecraft, and he was taken to an area and teamed up with other children, and it was like a garden on this spacecraft. And he said that these aliens had actually dug things up from the forest that he knew about, and so he was helping these children who were on this spacecraft plant these in this garden. And he said that he had always loved plants, and so that he knew what the plants were for and how his people used them, and so he would tell all the these aliens about the uses of these plants. And over the years, he continued to disappear, sometimes for a month at a time. And he would say that, he had been to the sky, and that he was on this disc in the sky, and that there were people from all different colors and all different kinds of individuals that lived on this city that was circling the earth. And he said that as the years passed, he, I asked him what it looked like, and he said it was a huge silver sombrero. And he said it floated in the sky high above the earth. At first he didn't know because he hadn't seen it in the daylight. And he said it was lighted, but the lights were greenish everywhere, but in the plant room. And he said at night I could look out and I could almost touch the stars. He said we were in space, but we just floated there. And he said there were living quarters, and there were scientists, and he said that the garden was located along the back side of the disc, away from a place where the leaders worked, he said. It was huge. He said there were 3 levels, and at the top were the men who operated the city, and in the middle level there was an eating place. And I said, well, what did they eat? And he told me that they could eat anything you could think of. So you just had to think of what you wanted, and you could get it.
Oh, I
want
that.
Yeah. Without having to cook it. Wouldn't that be great?
I was just complaining about cooking tonight, Ardy. I was like, God, I'm sick of this. Now here's the solution. Okay.
Right.
I'm ready.
And he said that, and he talked about how they told him that a series of catastrophes had struck their planet, and they lived underground, and that they hoped someday that they would be able to occupy the surface of their planet. And he said that I said, well, what is your role with these aliens? And he said, well, I'm their Earth advisor. I tell the children that life on Earth and about the jungles and the forest and the plants and how to use them. He said, I even tell them the old stories I heard from my grandfather. And I continue to teach them about the importance of trees and plants and how they can feed your soul. And then he said that the little children call him honored grandfather in their language, of course, which I don't remember how to pronounce, but it's quite an interesting word. He said that they lived in underground caves, and that their planet was huge. It was several times bigger than Earth, and that they moved underground when the surface became so desolate. And he said the caves are so large, I don't know how to compare them to anything. He said there are no seasons. They control the temperatures, and they have different sections where people live and tend to plants. He said some places are hot and moist, and some are dry and cool, and some are like the desert. And they have hot zones and cool zones. And I asked him, I said, well, how do they live? And he says, well, they all live together. They have no private property. Everything is owned and given to you by the community. He said there were couples like we have in marriage, and children were born, but for the first few years they remain in a nursery, and couples take turns taking them to their quarters to spend the night. He said the whole community raises the children, and they do not have a mother and father as we know it. I said, well, what happened to the children when they leave the nursery? And he says, well, after that they have a place of their own, and they can stay with a couple overnight if they choose to do that, but they make their own decisions. And I said, well, what about the men? Were there men and women? Were there defined roles? And he said there were no roles specific to men or women like we have. Everyone did a job, and both men and women could do the same job. And he said they spent much of their time working on ways of solving their planet's problems because they hoped one day to live above ground. And I asked him, I said, well, did you notice any difference about them? And he said, well, their eyes were larger than human eyes, big round eyes, almost black eyes. He said, I never saw blue eyes. Their faces were human except for the eyes, the big eyes. And I said, well, were they almond-shaped? Are you sure they weren't? No, he said they were round.
That's different.
And I said, well, did you notice any human emotions? And he said, well, they like to have fun. He said they play games, and he said they have this huge underground pool, and they swim there. Children and, men and women and girls and boys together. He said, I never saw any fights or anger or jealousy. I never saw drunkenness. I never saw wife beating, but they didn't show outward affection. He said, I never saw anybody hug or kiss. And I said, well, what kind of foods did they eat? And he said, well, they grew vegetables and fruits from all over the universe. He said they brought back fruit trees from many planets and planted them there. And he said their diet was mostly raw. No one ever seemed to be hungry. But they didn't age like humans either. He said the children liked to touch my skin because it was wrinkled. They said they had never seen wrinkled skin.
And from all of this story that I read in your book is so wonderful. Again, the name of it is Sky People, Untold Stories of Alien Encounters in MesoAmerica. When I read the story, I was really struck by the fact that he didn't have any fear. It's like he just took it as another day in his life, that he was up on a spaceship planting stuff, with these strange beings, but he really wasn't afraid.
Well, and don't you think it was because he was introduced to them at such an early age?
Yes.
He never felt fear with them, and he was a little boy. He kind of grew up with them.
Right.
And what I thought was most interesting is how they gave him gold.
Oh, yes. Tell us about the gold.
And
really
I
something.
said gold, and he said gold has universal value. So I thought that was interesting.
Very.
And that is.
He ended up with gold bars with strange letters on them that were eventually sold to put his son or his nephew or grandson, somebody, through college, right?
Right, the little boy, and he had gone. When I went back to see him, because I wanted to talk to him some more, he was just a wealth of information. But he was very old, and he got tired easily, and so I could only stay with him for a short period of time. And so he made me promise to come back, and I said, "Oh, I will." And when I went back a few months later, he had passed. But Miguel was just a little boy in the community that he had grown fond of, and who kept telling this little boy that he would take his place in the stars. So he had taught this little boy all about the trees, and this little boy loved this. He would go and plant trees for people and plant gardens and stuff. But he wanted Miguel to know more about science and botany and those kind of things, and he wanted him to go to the college because he felt he could make a greater impact and help these people if he went to school. And so they had been giving him gold bars, and he had been putting them away. And when he died, Miguel's mother found them along with a note that these were to be used for Miguel's education. So she sold them. And I asked her, I said, well, was there anything distinctive about them? And she said, yes, there was some weird lettering on them that I didn't understand. Oh, my goodness. But
I know it.
She
Here's
sold
more
them.
Proof. Yeah.
She said, I shouldn't have done that, right? And I said, well, it would have been nice if you'd have saved one. But anyway, the most interesting part of it was the school kept calling her. She sent Miguel to a boarding school, and there he would be cared for and fed, and his education would be assured, which she couldn't give him that in this village,
Sure.
The schooling in Mexico is just horrible for kids who live in these little villages. I mean, it's just, at best, you could go to school for 8 years and end up with a third-grade education if you're lucky. It's the equivalency of an American education. It's really sad. So people who have money either pay for their kids to go to private schools which 90% of the people don't have the money to do that, And then there are people who don't send their kids to school because even the public school costs money. You got to have books, you got to have paper and pencil, and they just don't have the money for it. And so Miguel, she sent him to a boarding school, and he would come up disappearing. And she told him, she said, well, lock him in the room so he can't get out. And they did that, and he still disappeared.
Yeah.
So that had been, Raul had already warned us that, that Miguel would be replacing him. So I'm sure that he was going to the visitors in the floating city in the sky.
Yeah, what a wide range.
What a
of
story,
stories.
huh?
Yeah, I love that story because again, we here in the United States, we're inundated with stories of kidnappings and experimentation and all kinds of unpleasant things, implants, and here's a story of basically companionship and a mutual understanding and respect for the environment. It's a totally different experience. It's wonderful reading that story and hearing it from you.
What I thought was so interesting are whether these aliens destroyed their own planet or whether some other catastrophe destroyed it, because he never did have a clear understanding of what happened to the planet. But whatever happened to that planet, one of the things they seemed to be intent on doing was preserving all the fruits and vegetables that were grown throughout the universe and bringing them back and cultivating them. And I thought that was really unique that they had taken that upon themselves. And of course, with Raul being the one so knowledgeable about the rainforests of Central and South America, he was just like a walking encyclopedia when it came to those, how they could be used in medicine, how you prepare them in food, what the seasons were, when you could, what kind of climate they needed to be in, what their seasonal, when did they go to sleep or did they go to sleep? Just an amazing amount of knowledge.
I think they do that with children. They check their DNA and they see what they were born with, what their interest is and what they were born with. Like, you have some people that are musicians, and then you have some people that go into the medical profession because that's something that they just grasp instantly. And it's almost like magic within yourself. It's just something you love and and you learn quickly and you keep on learning. It's something that doesn't go away. And I think they spot this in the children. And even in my own experience being brought to a school to learn their language, there were other children there that I knew that also were learning their language. I think they pick and choose these children here, or us children when we were younger on Earth, through our DNA and our family lineage and our DNA that we are good at, something that we're good at, that is instilled in us. And his was the knowledge of the trees, the plants, the earth, the plants of the earth and that, and he even provided that. And it's amazing, and I think that's what they go for and look for. And even the children that were working planting that maybe never came back home, that said yes, they want to do it or went with them, also had that ability of nurturing plants, because some of us have green thumbs and some of us don't.
It's true. Well, it's interesting that you mentioned DNA, because not too long ago I interviewed a Native American woman who told me that she was first abducted when she was 6 years old, and she had been abducted regularly ever since. And then when she got married and had a child, that daughter, she was taken when she was 6 years old, and her second daughter was taken when she was 6 years old. And she said finally, she demanded to know what was going on. And she said, now this was in 1972 that she made these demands, and they told her, well, they said your molecular something or other, I've got it written down and on tape, is like ours. And then they said your the DNA. And she said, well, what is that? And they said, well, in another 50 years you'll know. She went back home, and she had this notebook that she would write down things that happened to her each year, and it was just a simple spiral notebook. She's telling me this, and she said they told her that her DNA was closest to theirs. She said, she walked over to her kitchen, into her kitchen. She pulls out this drawer, and she brings this notebook over to me. She leaves through it. She said, look at this. This is 1972. And I wrote down DNA with question marks. I didn't know what it was.
Oh, my.
Well, nobody knew what DNA was in 1972.
Right.
And she said, now they talk about it on Maury's show.
Right.
Yeah.
On that Maury show. She said, I'm still not sure what it is.
Yeah, they got a few more years to perfect what they know what it is, huh?
Yeah, and so she was. I thought that was one evidence of validation of someone who had heard this term from an alien being and then was told the reason they came for her was because her DNA was close to theirs.
Yes, family
it
lines
makes
and
a lot
DNA.
Of sense. Yeah, it really does. And we've had the Venerable Tahani Oahu on the show who has also said that. She said they come for their own. So it makes sense. And, it ties in again with the story that you just shared. And, gosh, I hate to end the show here, Dr. Clarke.
Oh.
I mean, this has
been fun. It's like sitting around a coffee table drinking coffee.
Yes.
That's right.
It's so nice to talk with you.
Yes, and we hope you're going to write another book with more stories.
Well, I'm in the process.
Oh, yay!
Yes, I have to date selected 40 stories. I'm hoping to include some more. Well, you know how it is. You know, you can only have so many pages in a book or so many words in a book. So you know how that goes.
Oh, yeah.
So, I could have told more stories than Sky people, but, I had some limits.
No, sure. Well, we would love for you to come back anytime, but definitely when you have your next book out, because, again, both Becky and I love this book, and we just have so very much enjoyed every minute of you being on the show tonight.
Yes.
And I'd like to tell your listeners, if they want to follow up with any discussion or they want to tell me a story or they want to write me after they've read the book and give me their observations and opinions, they can do that at Ardy, ARDY, at Sixkiller.com.
Excellent. And again, that's Ardy, ARDY, at Sixkiller.com. That's excellent.
Right. Okay.
Excellent. Just a terrific,
hey, you guys have a great night.
Show. Hey, thank you so
wonderful.
much.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh, my goodness. Becky, this has been so much fun, hasn't it?
Yes. Oh, my goodness. There is so many experiences in that book that people have gone through. And like she said, they hadn't have access really to TVs or magazines to know anything that's going on with a lot of us over in other countries and that. And, their experiences go right along with a lot of the experiences that other people have. Even the beings, are explained and spoken of, look like a lot of the different beings that have visited other people too. So it's just amazing.
It is amazing. And her book is so fascinating to me because there are things in there I never heard of, like the aliens that walk backward and that had two sets of eyes. And, oh, my goodness.
Oh,
wow.
I've heard of them.
You have? Oh, see, you're
yes. I even seen something on TV, and their knees bent funny, and they were walking backwards, and they bent their chin up to the sky, so their heads were upside down in the back. I mean, I seen that somewhere, and it was probably like about 7-8 years ago that I seen it, and I was just like, what in the world?
Yeah,
I think I'd be running from that if I seen that.
I know. It's such a different experience, and God bless her because she went through a 12,000-mile expedition.
Yes.
Through Belize, Honduras, Guatemala, and Mexico, researching all of this. And oh my goodness, I can't wait to read her next book now. I hope she hurries up and finishes it soon.
I know, it was wonderful.
Just wonderful. And wonderful having you back. And I hope that
you. It's wonderful being here.
And I hope you'll continue to feel well enough to continue to come back, and especially for these types of shows where you are the expert. And what a beautiful message you gave to her in the angelic language.
Yes.
That was stunning.
Oh, my gosh, I could hear it. I could hear it echoing as she was talking and echoing. And I was saying, okay, and I pulled the phone away from my ear, and I said, okay, I'll receive it, and I started receiving it. Then when she got back on, I wanted to let her know, and then I just let it come right out, and there it was.
Beautiful. It was beautiful, Becky, just beautiful. So
thank you. I think she's going to have an experience.
Oh, God. Yes. And so, again, our audience, thank you so much for tuning in tonight for this terrific show, and make sure you do buy a copy of this book. You will not be sorry you did. Sky People, Untold Stories of Alien Encounters in Mesoamerica, authored by our guest, Dr. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke. What a book, and what a wonderful guest tonight.
Yes, totally enjoyable. And learned so much.
I know it. It's never-ending in the paranormal field here on Supernatural Girlz.
This is true. Doors open everywhere.
They do. And now next week we have George Lugo on, who's a very famous medium. He works with people all over the world. He is like a super medium, and he's going to be with us next week, so don't miss that one. Yes. So everybody, have a wonderful week, and stay warm, stay safe, and we'll see you on the Blue Highway. Good night, Becky.
Yes. Good night, Patricia. Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for another radio adventure with